Welcome to the Sleevy G Show. I'm the host with the most, Gomez, and today I do have a special guest. He is one of the co-hosts of the Weencast Podcast. Let's bring in Shane. Shane, how are you, buddy?
Oh man, so good. It's so good to be here with you, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, not a
Love the
problem.
show.
Thank you, thank you. Well, we've been talking prior for a while with Playlist Wars with you, me, and Brian, and with our little hiatus, Brian and I we gave birth to two new DC, as he says, at DC Comics. I'm more of a Marvel guy, and DC, I'm more Batman, but he didn't ever want to be called Robin when I said dynamic duo. But here we are today, and I'm excited to have you on because we're talking about something that we're both heavily into to this day. Well, at least I know I am. But we're talking about retro and today's video games.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, check it out.
Look at that. He's got the Nintendo, and that's kind of funny. I was playing, you can't see it in here, but I was playing WWE 2K23. Uh, so the wrestling games have changed dramatically
Oh
from
my God. Oh
from
my God. I can't even imagine. I haven't played a modern day wrestling game in ages. So I'll have to take your word for it on that one.
the graphics are
But
ridiculous. I feel like I'm in the show again, like literally watching Monday
yeah.
Night Raw back in the day, which is awesome.
Well, I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but I'm going to kind of turn the tables on you a little bit.
Oh,
And I mean, I plan on going way, way, way back with this one. If we're gonna
okay.
jump right into it, I wanna hear about what is your first video game memory?
First video game memory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is going back in the day. We're talking
And and
80.
and and real, I'm sorry to cut you off right
Yeah,
away, but before we even start that, you and I are the same age. And I don't
yes.
know if you're okay with saying how old you are,
I'm
but
43.
okay. So same here. We learned that.
Yeah,
So when we're talking like what's old for us, I definitely have memories of stuff like pre NES, as crazy as that sounds.
same
So you
here.
you tell me what you were gonna say.
So I had two of them, and this is going back in the day. I had the Coleco system
Uh-huh.
back in the day, and that was like early 80s. So that was like 84.
Yep.
In that same year, there was one thing I really wanted, and that was the Atari 2600
Okay.
for a couple of games. One was Cubert.
Okay.
Loved playing Cubert, but also
Mhm.
I loved playing. There was Pong,
Mhm.
the pole position game, and I know I'm forgetting one, and it's the one that I truly loved so much. It's going to take me a minute because it's been so long that I've touched this system. Oh, there we go. Pac-Man. That's the one. I'm thinking that's something I loved.
You know what? It's so funny you mention that because when you watch a lot of like the retro gaming like YouTube channels and stuff,
Mhm.
they talk about how the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man is like, oh, that was garbage and like, it wasn't anything like it was in the arcade. I loved Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. Are you
So did
kidding
I.
me?
I thought it
I
was
mean,
great.
I'll put that on right now and start playing with my kids. Are you kidding? I mean, that is,
It's truly one of those favorite ones. Yes.
one of the things about today versus then, we'll get into that in a little
Yeah.
bit, but you had what you had, and
Yeah.
that was a perfect example of that. If that's what you had at home, that was a good game.
Oh
you know
yeah.
you know
It
what I
was
mean?
it was one of those things, Shane, like you're saying, it's like you had what you had, but also it's like at that time, again, my parents worked hard, very hard to get where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm.
They started a foundation, and where I'm at today, it's because of my parents' product. Working hard and working in what you're getting. And that's something that's been installed in me and will probably end up being in the death of me. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to teach my kids too. Like everything is not handed to you. You have to
Oh yeah.
work for it. Listen, there's times where there's gift giving, of course, Christmas, birthdays, little holidays here and there. But there's something you want that you got to earn it a little bit. You know what I mean? And my
Mm-hmm.
parents, I remember I wanted the Atari 2600, and man, even at 5 years old, 4 years old, man, they made me work for it. make sure my room was picked up, like nothing major,
Uh-huh.
but picking up the room, making sure I had no garbage there, and stuff like that. And Christmas morn, I'll never forget it. The Atari 2600 was in my hands
Oh yeah,
with
that's
with
awesome, man.
with the first game was Pac-Man, the first game I got. So when you think about it, those games at that point in 1984, 85, games were going for like $10. You know what I mean? And at that point, your parents are struggling to give you everything. You know what I mean? But to get an Atari 2600 at $50 maybe, and a game at $10, that's $70 almost. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is ridiculous because of again, now I know we're going to be flip flopping a little bit here, but when you look at a modern game system, here it is. Here's a PlayStation 5, and I think I did buy mine from Walmart. I was one of the lucky ones.
Okay.
I beat the bot and I got it somehow. I'm surprised. And it was $3.99. The technology and the systems have, I can't even say the word, elevated. There we go. That's the word I'm
Yeah,
looking for.
exploded.
Elevated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now here's the base that we're talking about, the 2600. But now, Shane, let's turn the tables on you. Because now
Uh-oh.
you said what was mine. What was yours?
Well, I definitely have memories of before we even like had a system ourselves. And I remember going over to my grandmother's house. There was two of my aunts that lived with my grandmother when I was, you know,
Mhm.
3, 4, 5. And I have an older brother who's 5 years older than me.
Okay.
So we would go over there and they had Atari 2600, which was the original version with the wood, like the
Yes,
wood
the wood
paneling,
dash. The wood dash.
right, and the actual like switches that went up and down.
That's
So
the
it
one
was
I
like,
wanted. I didn't
right,
get that, but
so it was like one of those things where like every time we went over, it's like let's play Atari, and they had the same like 6 or 7 games. They never really got anything like
right.
beyond the initial like set of games that they had. Pac-Man was definitely one of them. I think Kaboom, if you
Kaboom.
remember that was a paddle game.
That was the paddle game. Yes, I do remember
Yeah,
Kaboom.
we used to love that. And then I think what had happened is that I think my brother got the Atari system for his birthday, which was the smaller version. So that
Yeah.
must have been, however many years passed or whatever. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you what year it was, but that was like the little one.
Yes.
So that was like the later version of the Atari. So I think that was the first system that we actually had ourselves.
That's the one I originally had. I wanted the one with the wood panel, but to find that one was difficult because I think that was late 79 into 80, 81. I think the one with the wood panel. So,
Something right, something like that.
and
Yeah.
as at our age, we got the smaller, but listen,
Mm-hmm.
you got an Atari 2600. It didn't matter if you had the
Oh,
wood, you know,
yeah.
it was the coolest thing ever.
We had no concept as to like how any of that stuff worked. It was like, oh, Atari.
Yes.
We just knew it looked different. You know what I mean? Like
But it was
it did the same
fun.
thing, you
It
know.
was fun though. It was so much fun.
Oh my God, yeah, we loved it. I mean, and I didn't write any games down or anything for
Um,
that, but River Raid, if you ever played River Raid,
yes.
we used to love that. A lot of those Activision games,
The Activision, well, Activision was pretty much the whole Atari. Like they took over Atari, the newer version of the 2600. So I remember Activision really being one of the big pushers of the new version of the Atari 2600 with the
they
video games.
yeah, I mean, they definitely made like the best stuff
Yeah.
for the 2600. A big one for us was called a game called Oink,
Oh,
which
yes.
was like a, pig and wolf
Yep.
game. We loved that. I
I,
think we got that for like Easter one year or something. Or, it
right.
might have been the following Easter. I don't know why that sticks out in my head. That might be, or maybe it was Christmas. I don't remember.
Oh, because Easter's just around the corner for us right now.
Well, yeah, my kids are not going to get any video games. I'll tell you that much.
Neither are
Um,
mine. Neither are mine.
but no, maybe it wasn't Easter. I can't remember, but that was a big one. And then what had happened was my brother was probably about 11 or 12, something like that.
Mhm.
And he actually I think he had purchased his own NES. Like the
Okay.
NES was maybe like a year
Oh,
old, 6 months, something like that, and it was his. You know
yes.
what I mean?
You could
So
not touch it. You were not going near it. You can't even borrow his video games. Listen, I had cousins. I didn't have any brothers or sisters, but when it came to the NES, oh my God, I can remember the fights we've had with my cousins. And
right, right,
it was
right.
bad.
But yeah, that was our first like, Nintendo system, and it was my brother's. It was my older brother. So it was like, it was in his room.
You're right.
You know what I mean? If I wanted to play, I had to go in play whatever game he's got on or whatever. I think my mom and dad fought for me to a certain extent. Let your little brother play,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um, and then I think, it was a year or two old or whatever, and then we sort of migrated it into like, the
Your
family
room.
system, and okay, it's both of yours now or whatever. Um, but yeah, and all of those original games, I mean, forget about it. Some of the
Super
best
Mario's.
memories of my childhood, yeah, the original Mario Brothers, staying up all night and just
Yeah.
trying to get to to the next level in Mario Brothers. Metroid,
Metroid. Jackal was another good one.
Jackal,
There was
yeah,
a
that
there
was a
was
good
a
one.
California Games was another great game I loved.
Oh my
Um,
god.
there was one that was called Tubin,
Oh
and
yeah.
that was fun. That was another great game. But there was the Goonies too.
Oh, that was tough, man.
That was a tough game. That was one of the games I could not beat ever. But you know what's funny? Like I know when people think NES, they think Zelda. Now
Hmm.
I didn't get into Zelda very much like everybody else has. Like it was
Oh boy.
not. Well, listen, I might get bashed a little bit. I get it. I tried playing it, but it was like I could tell it wasn't for me. Like this is where when NES came out, I started discovering sports.
Hmm.
So Tecmo football, soccer, all these games were coming out, and
Right.
that's games that drove me. Like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm a sports guy. Like Blades of Steel, Double Dribble. Those are the games I remember playing like constantly. And the
Yeah.
thing is, and the one that I always kept going back was always, well, I remember the NES I got. I didn't get the original NES. I got the one with the power pad.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So I got Super Mario, Duck Hunt, and that track and field game. So when my parents paid for that, which I think was $149.99 back in the day, you imagine it, 150 for 3 games, a power pad, the system, and 2 controllers, which was like a deal and a half now.
Yep.
I remember my mom said, "You got 3 games in here. Don't ask me for one for at least 5 months."
Oh, that's great, man.
So it's Christmas week. What do you think I was going to do? Sit home? I mean, go out and play in the snow? No, I got a Nintendo. It's like that
Hmm.
movie, 8-Bit Christmas.
Right, right, right,
You know what I mean? Which was a
right.
great movie. That's how we all were when Nintendo came out.
Oh my God, yeah.
And
Hmm.
and then as I looked at it, I played Mario Brothers. Within a week, I beat it because I
Well,
was.
here's a fun fact. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people right away will talk about, like, when I start talking about, like, retro games and like I'm a big Nintendo guy and whatnot. Right away, it's like, oh yeah, Duck Hunt. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I remember playing Duck Hunt. Blah blah blah. Here's a fun fact: we never had the gun or the power pad because
Wow.
the system that my brother got was the original. It was just called the control deck.
Control. Yes. The original control deck.
Just came with Super Mario Brothers.
Yes.
And then the first couple of games that we had, like I said, Metroid, Zelda, 1942, which was
Oh,
like a,
that's an airplane game. Yes, that
yeah,
was
yeah,
another
yeah,
great.
yeah. My brother loved that one, and 1943 came, a little bit
Yep.
later. Um, I'm
Then
trying to
Top
think of
Gun.
what
Top
else did we
Gun.
had, but
I
yeah,
had
yeah, the Top
Top
Gun
Gun
game.
1 and 2 because of the damn
Hmm.
movie. Of course, I had to buy it. Super. You had all 3 Super Mario Brothers, 1, 2, and 3. Uh,
Yes.
Rad Racer was another one. No,
Hmm.
was it Rad Racer or Rad Racer?
Oh,
Yeah,
and RC Pro Am was a
RC
good
Program
racing
was a
game.
great Excite Bike.
Oh yeah,
I
Excite
mean,
Bike.
the list. Frogger was on there too, actually. Oh my God, the list can go on and on forever. But I remember as I got a little older, the movie The Wizard comes out.
Oh yeah.
Now, I love that movie just because of the fact I was trying to get into that damn competition because I really know I could. I in my head I thought I was that good. Then when I'm seeing these kids play, I'm like, maybe I'm not that good. You know what I mean? And that's a scary thing. And then a new game, and then you're like, a new game. The hell's a new game? Like, like you first saw the Power Glove with Lucas, and he's doing the
Yep.
race, and you're like, holy Christ! Like, what do you do? Like, I can't afford the Power Glove.
Here's another fun fact.
Uh-oh.
I had the Power Glove.
Did you really?
I I'm pretty sure it was the same Christmas. It was like the Power Glove and the Game Boy had come out that that year,
Yeah, I think it was.
right? And if I had to take a guess as a grown man looking back, I would say that my parents were probably like, "Well, we're not going to get the Game Boy because then he's going to want all new games for that." So I got the Power Glove. You know,
Which was great.
when every other kid got a Game Boy that Christmas, I got the Power Glove, and I'm here to tell you, just like you've heard on YouTube, that thing sucked.
Yeah.
Did you ever play with one?
I played with one. My buddy got it that year. It came out for Christmas. So that year, Christmas was like a huge year for Nintendo. You had the Power Glove. They were just introducing Game Boy that September for Christmas. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when my mother asked, "What do you want from Santa?" Oh, I said, "I want the Power Glove. I want the Game Boy. I want Super Mario Land. Super Mario Land for the Game
Yeah.
Boy. I want
For
the
Game Boy, yep.
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game too, Skate or Die.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
want those games too, and I need the battery charger to go with it too, and then and a case." And lo and behold, I did not get the Power Glove. I was a little bummed, a little bit, because everyone talked about it, and my buddy loved it. He loved the Power Glove. He was good at it. He was very good. He even played Mike Tyson's Punch Out with it. That's another game for you. But
Ay, ay, ay.
but when I got my hands on
Go
that
ahead.
game, when I had my hands on that Game Boy, I'll tell you, the biggest smile came out of my face. Like, playing Super
Yeah.
Mario, my mom was like happy I was quiet in the corner. I wasn't playing it on the TV, so now they can watch the TV, or I'm out of my
Mm-hmm.
room. I'm in the living room with them a little bit. So,
Right, right, right.
so Game Boy happens. Game Boy is born. And let me tell you,
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we just didn't have the patience to, get the thing going right,
mhm,
or there was a lot of different like factors that had to like work right. As a
yeah,
matter of fact, I mentioned 1943. That was one of the games that actually kind of worked well
with the Power Glove.
with the Power Glove. Believe it or
Wow.
not, I remember that being pretty cool because you could like
Okay.
fly the plane like this, sort of.
Okay.
You know
I
what
can
I
see
mean?
that.
But I mean, I could never get we could never get Punch Out to work right. We
No.
love Punch Out's one of my brother's like top 5 favorite games, but I don't remember us ever getting the Punch Out to like work properly.
Right.
We never had the glove ball, which I think that was probably like something that was like, okay, well, this game was like made for the glove, so maybe that worked a little bit. But like all of those like regular games
Didn't
that we
work for.
loved and played, the glove never like
No, but
did anything cool.
and that's the one thing, like, I was kind of upset with my mom, well, at Santa, as I say at that time. So a little upset with Santa. Now I know the history, you know what I mean? I was a little PO'd with him. He didn't bring the Power Glove, but I said, you know what? I got 4 games out of the Game Boy though, you know what I mean? Which was cool. So I'm not gonna complain much, and the charger and the case. So I was like, it's successful Christmas. Oh, Knight
You did
Rider
much better than me that Christmas. I'm telling
and
you
Knight
that right
Rider
now.
came out too. Knight Rider was out that Christmas, and I got Knight Rider too.
Okay, cool.
So yes, I am a huge Knight Rider fan. By the way, I will say that my nerdum is coming out.
So, do you think you could do a top 5 just NES games?
Oh yeah, easily off the top of my head. Super Mario Brothers 1 is definitely always going to be my love. 2 and
Okay.
3, because I always loved the Super Mario Brothers. I loved it. Will always love it. Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and to be honest with you, Knight Rider. It was the crappiest game ever, but I loved it because I loved
I was
watching
gonna
Knight.
say I don't know that I ever played the Knight Rider game.
I did, and I tell you, man,
And
I think
I might even I'm sorry to cut you off. I might
No,
even
sorry.
have it. I might even have. I'll have
Oh
to
my
check
god.
my
If you
stacks and
if
see.
if you have that thing is gold. That is like a gold bar right now, probably because people who love the show who are still I'm still one of them. Matter of fact, I bought one of those fam homes build your kit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got one of those. I'm still building.
Okay.
I have Knight Rider toys. My wife bought me one Christmas a Knight Rider car that talks. So like these are things that I one show I could never let go was Knight Rider. I don't
Okay.
know why. It's just one of those things when they did the Knight Rider 2000 movie. As much as it was a horrible movie, I loved it. When they did the first reboot of Knight Rider, it's Night Team Rider VR was horrible. And then in 2000, was it 4 or 8? They redid the new Knight Rider with a Mustang. Eh, I was, eh, I was okay with it because,
The magic was gone by then, huh?
yeah, well, you know what it was? I didn't like the way it would transform, like it had nanotechnology. So it was cool that it would, it's like the molecular bomb on the shelf from the 80s, you know what I mean? But the fact that you turned the car into a pink Mustang was like, eh. That the car could transform into a 4x4 was pretty cool. But when they did like a super pursuit mode, they made the wheels way too maggy, the wing too huge. Like, you know what? Cool. You put a blower on the engine, which is cool. Keep it like that. Keep the wheels the same, and you just add a wing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They overdid it, and it was just like, the storylines were pretty good. You
All
know what I
right.
mean? They were copying off the original almost, pretty close to it. They had the kit versus car. So as the time progressed, it was just like, okay, yeah, just cancel it. David
See, to me,
Hasselhoff.
yeah, right. It sounds to me like another one of those like reboots or remakes where really all it does is make you want to watch the original.
Yeah,
You know,
I
like I
know.
watched. We're going off topic here for sure, but I watched a couple episodes of that new Night Court, and it was funny.
Oh, yeah, I could have.
It was okay. It was funny, but I'm like,
It's
what does it make you want to do? It makes you want to watch the original show.
you with
You know?
when John Larroquette was young and
Yeah.
and all of them, that made that show that was a reboot that never had to be happening. My God, we could actually talk about reboot shows the next time you ever come back on.
Oh, I'd
There,
love to. That would
that
be
that
great.
that would be great. So you heard it now here, folks. Pretty soon we'll have reboot shows that we could talk about because Knight Rider is one of them. Well, I wish Airwolf was redone, but I kind of want to see how we will redo that. But we already got a new show concept already for that for us. So
There you
soon
go.
that's what will be happening soon. Shane will be back on now, folks.
We can make that a whole series.
Oh, exactly. So now going back now, we have to get back onto topic. So we just got into Game Boy. So you
Uh-huh.
said you never got it. Did you ever got it in the later years then?
Yes. So basically, I had already, and we got to go back to top five NES games
Oh
because I have
yes.
those I actually wrote down. But
Okay,
like,
let's do this. Hold on. Talk about your Game Boy and then go to your top five after that.
so I did get a Game Boy. It was later on. So
Okay.
so I had already had the NES obviously, and then
Mhm.
Super Nintendo came out. I had
Yeah.
that right away. I had that that Christmas it came out. There was no way I was going without that. And pretty much there on out, I was a pretty loyal Nintendo guy, and still am to this day. And then I had bought my own. It was still the original Game Boy. It was
Mhm.
before they came out
The
with like Game Boy Color and Game Boy
colors, yeah.
Pocket and like all of those like different like
You had the green
variations.
screen. You had the green
The
screen.
I still had the one that was the green screen, but uh I remember it was when they redid Donkey Kong, and
Mhm.
there was like it was like a puzzle game, sort of like
Yes,
a
I
Donkey
remember
Kong
that.
puzzle game. That's a really cool game,
That
actually.
actually is.
I'm hoping that makes it to Switch now that they have some Game Boy stuff on. I'm sure it's probably one of the ones they're keeping in their back pocket for the next,
Probably. Oh, I
6
have a
months or
Switch.
year or whatever.
I
But
have a
that was a
Switch game.
cool game. Um and Wario Land, which was Super Mario Land
Yes,
3.
I remember that one. That was a good
So
game
that was
too.
like that had like just come out when I had gotten my Game Boy. So it was sort of like that last wave of Game Boy stuff. But
Mhm.
those are great games.
Oh, they were all great games. Anything off the Game Boy was so great. I remember I was so excited because I was so into Ninja Turtles. So when they had a portable video game of Ninja Turtles, Attack of the Foot Clan, I still remember
Hmm?
it because I
Yep.
own on the Nintendo Switch the Cowabunga package.
Me
So,
too.
so of course I was playing the original NES for a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and then I jumped back and forth for every with all the original titles almost.
You know what's funny about those, because I got the Cowabunga collection too, and I'm showing my kids and everything, like, oh yeah, these were like the original like Turtles like arcade games.
Yeah.
Um, the only problem is when you're playing it at home and you don't have to worry about money, like you don't have to worry about quarters.
Oh yeah.
It's really just a matter of time until you like work your way through it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no like tension about it of like trying to like stay alive because you only have so many more quarters.
Oh, exactly. And that's the funny thing is now that we're talking about, we're in that NES, Super NES. Let's just talk really quick about video game places, man. Video arcades. That was a safe haven for a lot of kids back in the day when you went to
Yeah.
the mall with your mom or your dad.
Yes. I can remember, and that was one of the things I was going to bring up when we were talking about like our original like video game memories, is
Mhm.
because I remember it as being something that was sort of like for older kids. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like that was my initial like memories of like going to the mall and seeing the arcade and the arcade games and whatnot, but being
Yes.
kind of a little intimidated. You know what I mean? And like, oh, that's sort of for the bigger kids,
Yeah. It was a
you know?
teenager. It was a teenager hangout. I was about 8 or 9. I was a little timid, but then as I walked in, I'll never, because don't forget, I'm a big guy growing up. So as a kid, I was pretty tall, very, I was a husky kid. So I had some meat in my bones already. So when I walked in there, I'm like, all right, I could take some of these guys on. If anything has to happen. Now that's in my head.
Yeah, right.
Granted, I was by myself. If there was 3 or 4 kids, I'm done. But there was always that one. There was like 2 or 3 games I would constantly make sure I have quarters. So if my mom told me like a few days before, like a Sunday, because I know that's when she always went to the mall, was a Sunday. So
Okay.
she goes, "Hey, do you want to go to the mall with me? You go to the video game play, the video arcade." I'm like, "Yeah." So if she tells me by Wednesday, I'll have about $10 in quarters, which is about an hour and a half time that you're staying in there when your mom or your dad or your parents are shopping.
Hmm.
So there was one game that I played so much, and I wish to this day they would bring it back. It was ABP, All Points Bulletin.
Oh boy, you're gonna have to explain that one to me. I
So
don't know if I know that one.
APB was this old video game. So it's a cop. You're a rookie. You're pulling people over. There's a siren. You're driving. People with trash. They had missions. It was one of those fun, dumb games. It was GTA before GTA became GTA. It's like Grand Theft.
What?
Yeah. ABP, Old Points Bulletin. That was a video game. It's an 80s video game.
And it was something where you like stood up to play, or you like
Yeah,
sat down and it was like a wheel or something.
you were standing with a wheel with the pedal on the ground right there.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then you had the siren. Well, as I tipped my computer here almost, you're driving and you hit the siren to pull people who are dumping trash. You're giving tickets. You got to do these little missions. You got to go through these tests. It was fun, and it was just this dumb retarded game that it reminds me of GTA. And I think this is
Okay.
where the concept of GTA came from. Except you're now the bad guy, not the good guy.
Right, right, right.
So it was one of those video games. And then there was another game that I used to play, and it was a bartender game where the guy would slide the beer. You would have to collect
Yeah.
it, you slide it back, and you're getting the
Yeah.
empties.
Tapper.
Tapper, that's the one.
Yeah.
That,
Or root beer tapper, as it would later be called, root beer tapper.
well, yeah, but I know as beer tapper because it had
Yeah.
Budweiser in there.
Right, right, right.
So,
Yeah.
so I would play that game, and as
Great
the
game.
times, yeah, it was a great game. And my wife a few years ago found this place in Morristown, New Jersey, where we're about 20 minutes away. It was called the Vault, and this place was awesome. It had retro video games,
Mm-hmm.
Pole Position, The Simpsons, the original Turtles. Tapper was there,
Yeah.
Frogger. You have a lot of these awesome games that I have not seen in years.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the best part. You pay $10 for a half an hour of wristlet, no quarters, greatest thing ever.
For anybody that's in the PA area, Central PA or
Mhm.
or Eastern PA, there's two places actually. There's the main one is in York, PA,
Okay.
which is fairly close to Lancaster, called
Yep.
Timeline Arcade. And then he has another, same gentleman has another one in Hanover, which is not that far, a little bit further south, like down towards like the Maryland, the Delaware
Okay,
border.
right by by Kennett Square and all that area. The only reason I know this is I have family lives in that area.
Yeah, it's
So
not that. Yeah, that's not that far. So
no.
basically, it's the same kind of concept. They're
Yeah.
all original, arcade machines. They're all, it's taken care of and everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's been, simulated or, any of that sort of multi-cade, nonsense or anything. It's
Mm.
all original stuff, and it's the same thing. You pay $10 for an hour, or I think it's $20 for the whole day.
Yeah, which is awesome. You can't go wrong with that because that's something any kid would love to do. And that's something I said to my daughter. I said I would love, she's only 6, but another year or two, like if they're still around, that's something I would love to take her so she could see what old school video games are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like right now she's seeing the new school. Like she actually wants to play 2K23 golf with me.
Okay.
So
Well, that's cool.
it's cool. I actually want to wait for the Masters ones to come out because I love the Masters.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for that to come out. So maybe I'll play with her on that one because I might be a little bit more forgiven than the Tiger Woods game. Um, this one's harder than I expected it. So for me to explain to her, can't get frustrated, but like me, I throw the club like if I was Happy Gilmore, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but you said you had Super Nintendo. So that's the same
Yes.
year, a year later. Well, Sega Master System was already out before
Mm-hmm.
Super NES came out. I never had the Sega Masters, but my cousins who lived in Pennsylvania, or no, they were living in Massachusetts when that came out. I'm sorry, they were living in Massachusetts, and when they were in school, my mom sent me up there for my spring break, and there was nothing to do during the day, and I would play Sega Master System.
Okay.
So I remember playing. They had games like Ultra Beast,
Yep.
Ghostbusters,
Mm-hmm.
Shinobi,
Mm-hmm.
Choplifter, Outrun,
Yep.
and I remember the Rocky game. Now,
Okay.
these are all games I would play, and I said I want a Sega Master System because so I could bring my games up to them, and then this system comes out, 16-bit. You're like, what? Then you see the Sega Genesis, and you're like, now they go from NES to Super NES, which at that time in those days were priced out very nicely. Now here comes the Sega Genesis. This is the one that was priced at I think it was $199 when it came out. I think
Probably something like that. Yeah.
so. This is the first video game system that was actually over $150, and you didn't get anything until I think it was the second version of Sega's came out. Like when I mean, like they had the ones that came out for the first 6 months for Christmas
Mm-hmm.
time, and then after that, I call it the second wind, where then Sonic was introduced into the game. Like you got Sonic 1,
Yeah.
and that's the one I got. So I didn't get Sega Genesis right away that first wave.
Okay.
I got it in the second wave where I got Sonic for free. So I was playing Sonic constantly, and let me tell you, greatest video game ever. I loved it. But then, Ultra Beast came out, and then something happened. Football, NCAA, basketball, Madden finally came out in the Sega Genesis.
I was gonna say that was the first system the first home console
Oh,
besides what PC that had Madden on it, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. Until then they introduced it to the Super Nintendo and all that. But it was the first one. The first
Mm-hmm.
rights were Sega Genesis.
Right. Right. Right.
So for me, it was like, ooh, of course, I'm playing Madden, I'm playing NHL hockey, So of course, that's where now I developed more of the sports features, you know what I mean? Because I love the sports. As we're talking, I have in the background the Ranger game, which they beat, even though this is probably 2 or 3 weeks later. Nashville Predators 7-0, by the way. So, they'll probably be in the playoff mode at that time by this airs. But it's the Sega Genesis was my love. Now, I when you ask me if there's anything that I regret missing,
Yes.
not yet. I haven't regret missing the Genesis. I will get to something soon. As I had the
Okay.
Sega Genesis, I went through a lot of games. I had a lot of NBA jams. I had all the NBA, the original NBA Jam, the tournament edition. I had the
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombats.
Oh yeah.
I had 1, 2, and 3. I had Ren and Stimpy because I loved that show at that time. I had Beavis and Butthead,
Yep.
which was not an easy game to beat, by the way.
No, and you know what? That's one where this, a lot of the times those games were kind of similar between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo
Yeah.
version. The game, but that's definitely one of them where the game is completely different. The
Yes.
Super Nintendo version of Beavis and Butthead is kind of a pushover. It's just
And
kind of more of a side scroller, and you just go through. You could that was a good rental because you could definitely
yes.
beat the thing over the course of a weekend. But
Yeah,
I
without
do
a doubt.
remember yeah, I do remember the Genesis version being pretty difficult and more of sort of like a puzzle type game.
Yeah, it was definitely a puzzle type game because I would not let it be. But then as I got older with Sega Genesis, something happened. The next portable system happened,
Okay.
the Game Gear.
Oh yeah.
So I loved the Game Gear. I'll tell you this. When I saw that came out, I think I was 11 because I still remember the picture. So my mom bought it with the TV connection to go into the Game Gear.
Oh my God. Yes,
I
I
I
remember that thing.
I
Yeah.
had Sonic 1 and 2 already, and I forgot there was another game she gave me. So I had three, a Shinobi, and then later on that day, it was Christmas. My cousins brought three more games for me, and my aunts and my uncles. So I had like 11 games on Christmas Day
Wow.
alone. You know what I mean? So because I said that's all I wanted. Hey, I want a shirt and stuff like that too. But that was the one thing I really wanted. And I'll tell you this, seeing that box, I couldn't touch it. Couldn't touch it. It's like a tease. So my mom, I think this is what I knew at this point. There was my mom was I'm not gonna say it because I know kids will be heartbroken. Santa's real. Santa and my mom's hooked up and got me the
Yeah.
Game Gear, you know what I mean? So as she was gonna give it to Santa for wrapping, I held it, and my mom took a picture of it because I held it like a little kid. I was like, "Oh, it's there, it's mine." It was one of those systems that I really wanted, and I knew a lot of people couldn't get it. And my mom and Santa, God bless them both, did a great job. Thanks, Santa and Mom. And I'll tell you that day, I would not let it be. I think I stayed up till 3 o'clock that morning, day after Christmas, playing it because it was the coolest thing. I forgot my Genesis was on the floor. You know,
Yeah.
my cousins were playing the Genesis. I was in my bed I had the covers over my head, pretending I'm sleeping. I'm like, tear.
I never had a Game Gear, but my podcasting partner from Weencast, Rory,
Mm-hmm.
his younger brother had one. So that was always a big thing of like, when I go over to their house, got to get some Game Gear. Anytime I saw one, it was
Right.
one of those things where it was like, oh, Game Gear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, it was in color. You
Yes.
know, that was enough. And one of the games, I don't know if you ever played this,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be kind of like a hidden gem or something like that. Crash Test Dummies.
Yes, that was a hidden gem because they were made very little. And if you
Right.
find that game, if he still has that game, ooh, again, it's like you said, like now it's kind of funny. Like now, as we're talking, we're remembering these video games. The value on a good condition
Oh yeah.
is ridiculous.
All right. Well, here. So segue into that. So, and you mentioned about collecting regrets. So I'll tell you my story.
Okay.
Okay. So I've had, like we mentioned, NES, Super NES, N64. I never had a Genesis or any of like the Sega stuff growing up. I always stuck with like the Nintendo stuff. My cousin had a Genesis, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd play them when I would go over to like friends' houses and stuff like that. But I always grew up with the different Nintendo system.
Right.
So and kept everything. So that was sort of the one thing, a lot of my friends would like when the new systems would come out, they'd trade in their old system, get whatever they could for it, which, back in those days, the pre-owned game shops, they wouldn't give you any kind of real money for
Um,
the stuff. And
uh,
I never wanted to get rid of my like old systems.
Right, which is
So
it's difficult to give up.
yeah, right. But a lot of times when we were kids growing up, it's like you needed the money for the new games, and that
Mhm.
was the first thing you did was trade in the old games. I never really did that, right? So I get to be an adult, and it was kind of the one thing or one of the things that I was sort of like ahead of the curve on because I already had a decent collection of NES games. A lot of my friends and a lot of the people my
Mhm.
age, oh, they got rid of NES a long time ago, right? Well, I kind of went into collecting for NES. Okay. So what I was doing, this is like the early like Craigslist days. And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, the internet thing is starting to become, viable, blah, 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 but
Yeah.
it's not anything like it is today.
Oh
Right.
no.
So I started collecting NES stuff. So what I would do is I would buy collections. Like I would buy like, okay, I got a system with 20 games for, $30 or $40 or whatever. Just buy, even though I don't need the system, just buy it, take the games out that I needed for my collection,
Mhm.
and then either sell the rest or trade the rest. So I was doing that and I was collecting a lot of what I didn't really know at the time, rare and uncommon NES games,
Okay.
right? So again, at this time, it might be a little on the valuable side compared to just like Mario or some of the real common stuff that's talking $5-10 a piece at that time.
Right.
And the stuff that I'm referring to might be 15-20, no big deal. What I decided to do, like a dope, was to put together a black box collection. So when I talk
Okay.
about black box, hopefully there's some people listening right now who know what I'm talking about. The original set of games,
Yes.
Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, golf,
Yep.
10-yard fight was the football game, baseball,
Yes.
okay? All the black box games in the box, okay? It's the first time I decided to put a set together of things in the box,
Okay.
complete in boxes, they say. Huge mistake. Huge mistake.
Oh
Okay.
no.
First of all, I never finished it because there was things even back then that were starting to get pricey.
Yeah.
Okay. Donkey Kong Jr. Math at the time was like $100 game. I'm
Yes.
not I'm not gonna spend $100 for a you know old NES game. Are you kidding me? What I should have done is I should have just focused on the loose carts and just
Mhm.
kept everything.
Right.
Just kept everything that I had and just tried to put together an actual like full set even of just loose carts. So I'm
Okay.
going to tell you and I made a little list here. So I'm going to tell you a couple of the carts that I got rid of that I know that I had.
Oh boy.
Okay. These might not mean much to you because they weren't all that popular.
But
Okay.
it means a lot to you though, because it might have
Well, when we start talking about the value,
yeah.
this
Money,
is
money,
what
money.
I'm saying. And some of them were good games I just never really got into because I didn't have them when I was a kid and I
Right.
didn't know that much about them. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to read off a couple that I know that I had. Widget,
I
which
remember
was
that.
like a cartoon, a little purple guy.
Yes.
He had a game. Well, the game isn't really all that great, but
No, it
look that
wasn't, but it was
look that one up on eBay. Okay. Young Indiana Jones.
yes.
Okay, which there again, I couldn't tell you anything about that game, but
It was
I know I should have kept it.
yeah, exactly. Because that's a rare gem.
Well, at least uncommon. Okay, James Bond Jr. Again,
Oh
that
my
was a sort of a
god.
later cartoon series that they
Yeah.
wind up making a game over, a game about. Okay,
Oh,
Bucky O'Hare, which another cartoon. Now that has made it into some of the YouTubers like top 10 lists.
yes, they have.
Because I would say that's kind of like one of those hidden gems of that's
Mhm.
actually a fairly good game as well
It was
as
actually
being kind of rare and you know
and
or uncommon at least.
uncommon and very playable actually. Like you said, a good game.
Yeah, two more.
Okay.
Chiller, which that was kind of a more of a bootleg kind of game. It wasn't really like a licensed one. I had a few of those over the years, never
Yeah.
really stuck with me. But the number one game I had the loose cart of, okay, Zombie Nation. Does that
Wow.
ring a bell to you?
Yes, it does. That rings a huge bell because I remember owning one of those.
No, come on.
I like you. I had a rare collection. Unfortunately, the rare collection was given away because
Oh boy.
again, I didn't realize as I was growing up that these games are going to become popular right now in
Yep.
2023. So let's jump into 2023. So
Okay.
as the list as you're just talking about, Zombie Nation, that's worth money.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now the person I gave this to, I hope he hears it. Sell it, and you owe me 15%. Nah. Again, one of those rare occasions. I gave away the NES at that point because I got the Sega Genesis. So at the time, when you think about these games, Zombie Nation, Double Dribble, Blades of Steel, games that are rare and hard to find, if you can find a cartridge in good condition, that let's just say that it's difficult. I think I was 17 and I realized I regret giving that up for free, by the way. I gave it to somebody who wanted a system, couldn't afford it. I said, as a good deed and good faith to me being who I am, here you go. I'm going to give you my Nintendo.
Yeah.
Please enjoy it. It might not be a lot right now. I know it's an 8-bit system compared to the Sega Genesis, but here, it's something.
Yeah, right.
And the kid loved it.
Yeah.
He played it for a long time. Made me happy. As I got older, I realized what I did, and I'm like, son of a bitch. I'll say it. You can curse on my show. You're like, damn it. You just don't realize the impact it has until 15, 20 years later. And
right.
that's what happened with my Game Gear.
Oh, okay.
So one of the ones besides a Nintendo, the real one I really was so upset that I lost was my Game Gear. So I go on a trip with my family. I bring the Game Gear, and my mom said, "Don't." I said, "Mom, I'm going to be bored on this trip. It's more of a you and dad trip than a me, you and dad trip." It was one of those business trips. Or not business, it was more seeing family, which I get bored. So we go down to Louisiana where my grandfather lived. Of course, when you're down there, the video game system is not as big deal. It's hunting, shooting alligators, shooting possum.
Sure, yeah. You're supposed to be getting outdoors and
You're getting outdoors. So I said,
yeah.
I'll do the outdoor stuff. We did like the tours and stuff, which I loved. But at night, I'm bored. I'm not watching Hunter or Airwolf. I need something that is stable, and which was my Game Gear. So I brought my Game Gear down, and as we leave for Louisiana, I thought I had it with me. Turns out I left it at the airport.
Oh no.
Yeah. I thought I grabbed the bag, and it wasn't the bag. It was my mother's I grabbed. Not realizing it because it was right next to each other. So, so on the flight back to New Jersey, crying my eyes out between both of my parents and kind of getting a little shit, saying we told you not to bring. Well, my mom told you not to bring it. My dad goes, "We'll get you a new
they've
one."
got to get a couple of them in there. Sure.
My dad's like, "We'll get you." I go, "I don't want a new one." It just that first one meant, and I had it for 2 or 3 years before I left.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's just the memories, the drops, the scratches, the engraving of your name on the back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's
If you would have gotten another one, it wouldn't have been the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah. That's pretty true.
I was devastated. And I'll tell you, I'm so emotional right now just talking about it because that was the first thing I've never lost a video game system. I've given them away or something, but to lose the Game Gear, to lose some of the iconic games that it came with, Sonic, Sonic 1 and 2, G-Lock, Super Monaco GP, Joe Montana Football, NHL All-Star. There was a few games in there, you know what I mean, that are rare finds this day. World Series Baseball. There's so much. And And I just sit there and I'm like, and they were so in good condition. The stickers were, the video games were like pristine. I would sit home. Sometimes I would clean it with a Q-tip, getting the dust off, making sure,
Oh man, you did that as a kid?
oh yeah, because I loved like when you buy stuff, like I worked and I bought a lot of those games. Like I would do shoveling the snow, anything I could do to get some pocket money, and
Yeah.
I buy that game. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
of course I took care of my stuff. Like until this day, I still do. you know, I don't go with a Q-tip anymore because it's a CD disc.
No, I mean, I have to say I was pretty good with my stuff too. I mean, we kept, between my brother and I, when we were a little bit older, again, by the time we started getting like NES stuff, we kept most of like the boxes. Some of the stuff got thrown away over the years, but I mean,
Yeah,
I still have on my shelf what's probably, 90% of the stuff I actually had as a kid.
and
You
that's
know what I mean?
awesome. I mean, I wish now I wish I had that because I talk to my daughter how video game systems were back in the day, and I show her pictures. I'm like, this is what we used to do, sweetie.
Oh yeah.
You're getting virtual reality where I got nothing compared to what your grandparents would have gotten back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But the evolution, I mean, like we went from say, I know we talked about NES, Game Boys, Super NES, N64, and Sega Genesis. Now, Sega Genesis was the biggest thing out there for quite some time.
Right.
And I remember Sega Genesis had the Sega Dreamcast, the Sega CD, trying to get into that reality now to make it better. And then two video game systems come out. Microsoft comes out with Xbox, which I
Mhm.
think, no, that was not first. It was the Sony PlayStation.
Oh yeah, PlayStation came first between the two
First,
of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Sony PlayStation, and now I'm going to say it won.
Mm-hmm.
I got my hands on. And I tell you that I love playing that thing to this day. NFL Game Day, Madden, NHL, EA Sports, anything with EA Sports on it, your soccer. One of my favorite games, and this is a if you could find it, it's almost like a gem now. The Die Hard trilogy video game, Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, and Die Hard 3,
Oh my God.
all in one disc. And yes, he said "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," and I loved it. The original GTA, where it was
Uh-huh.
the view was from the top.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And those were like some of my, oh my God, I loved it. And then Xbox comes out, Microsoft, and I looked at it and I'm like, it did not really do anything for me.
Okay.
I bought an Xbox 360 when it came out because the Halo got me a little bit.
Okay.
So I bought a 360 after PlayStation 1, and I think 2 and PlayStation 3. So PlayStation 3 was coming out when I bought the Xbox. And I'll tell you, I got the 3 Ring of Death 3 times.
Oh man.
So I just said, you know what? I'm returning it. Can I hold for a credit for when I had PlayStation 2? Don't get me wrong. I went from 1 to 2. This is where GameStop, EB Games, electronic boutiques, this is where we had all these video game stores back in the day too.
So now I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No.
explain to me. So you're saying you got like the red rings of death,
Yes.
right? So what would happen when you would get that? Would they just give you another system, or you were just like SOL?
No. You actually got a new system. They were trying
Okay.
Xbox was trying to make good to do what they had
Yeah.
to do to make the customer happy. So I guess after my third one, they said if this happens again, we can't do it anymore. Because not Sony, I'm sorry, Microsoft is getting annoyed.
Right.
Well, hey, make a superior product.
Yeah. Right.
Not my problem. Tell
Yeah.
Bill Gates to get off his butt and do something right. You know what I mean? But I get it. You know what I mean? So I took the credit. I just said, give me a PlayStation 3 when it comes in. Okay. PlayStation 3 was already out. It's a hard system to find. I got the fat PlayStation 3. So I went from PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. I traded those two in for the Xbox 360, which I regret fully now because the 3 times And in 1 month, I got 3 Rings of Death. So I was just so upset. So PlayStation 3 was already out before Xbox 360 came out, and PlayStation 3 was a hot system again.
Right.
Hard to find. So I knew somebody at GameStop, a friend of mine. So she would help me out. Ended up being very good friends at that point. We knew we lived in town. I hung out with her brother more. She's the assistant manager at GameStop. So we ended up becoming friends ourselves. So I said, hey, can you do me a big spot favor when that comes out? Hook me up. Like, not a problem. I got you. So I got the PlayStation 3, brand spanking new. So excited. Of course, there's not a lot of brand new games out, but they had a lot of used games. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take the Madden. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that. And I had like 3 or 4 games right off the bat for PlayStation 3.
Okay.
Great. Went home. Never had a problem with PlayStation 3. My fat one dies after 2 years because the excess of playing it.
Yeah.
And everything. It just, the motor went. So I just said, all right. So the new PS3 Slims came out. Loved it. Smaller, it's easier. Hey, I got more space now for the video games. I had the PlayStation 3 Slim. I'll tell you, I had PlayStation 3 Slim until almost about, I'm thinking now because PlayStation 3 moved in with me to at that point now was my fiance.
Okay.
And then PlayStation 4 comes out. Can I tell you how hard it was to get a hand on PlayStation 4? So
see, that kind of stuff just turns me off. And I know Nintendo is not, they're not innocent in the whole thing either.
No, they're not.
You know what I mean? But go ahead. Go ahead.
So my future in-laws. My father-in-law was talking about PlayStation for his son. He's a video gamer, not a huge video gamer, but like he plays his video games. He plays soccer. He plays like these games that I play sometimes. And I was telling him, like, yeah, this is the capacity. This is what it does. And he goes, oh, okay, great. And I'm thinking he's trying to get the info for his son. You know what I mean? Not for me. What do I care? I'm not going to see one at least for 6 months. So I'm already getting used to the idea.
Yeah.
So my birthday comes. My in-laws meet me my future in-laws meet me at the condo that I moved in with my wife. And they're like, here, happy birthday. So I said, well, why don't we open up before, she goes, why don't you open up before you leave? I'm like, no, I'll wait till later. It's like, no, you really, I open up, it's a PlayStation 4.
Oh, nice.
With Call of Duty.
Oh, wow.
So this was the bundle pack. So it came with the extra controller, the system, Madden 20, I think it was a 20 something. I can't remember what year that was. It came with Madden, came with a Call of Duty, and then they were able to switch out one video game for another for the bundle package because I loved Need for Speed. So Need for Speed was in my package. So 3 games plus the system plus an extra controller for my birthday.
Wow.
The joyness of now PlayStation 4. 4's invite. I couldn't wait for dinner to end because we were meeting up with my mom and my uncle at that time for my birthday, and I'm like dying to get home. Like, I really wish dinner would just end quicker. I really don't care about singing happy birthday. I really, we need to go. My wife said, you gotta be calm. I'm like, I really want to play. So we get home. My poor wife, I left her on the couch and I set up that PlayStation 4, and lo and behold, I was hooked. I think I played Madden for about 7.5 hours that night.
Wow.
I just started with one game and I could not finish because the game was so great at that time.
Wow, man.
So you gotta understand, the happiest not kid anymore, guy in the world, got the great fiance, got the great future in-laws, got my mom, got my uncle. It was going right.
Yeah.
So, PlayStation 4 just became that thing for me. And then number 5 happened. I said I wasn't going to get it. That's a freaking lie.
Yeah, right.
I saw the graphics, Shane, and I'm like, yep, that needs to be mine. So let's now, as we went from the mid 90s to early 2000s now to late 2020, is it 21 that it came out or 22? 21. Right before COVID. COVID's what, 3 years ago? So
Yeah.
2020. So yeah, 2020, right before COVID really hit us. And now everyone, online shopping, bundle packs only, $2,000 to get the system. I'm like, oh, hell no. The disc was a little bit more money than the download system, which I really was not looking for, because I feel like if a power surge happens, you lose all your games, you lose everything. So
Yep.
I'm still an old school disc guy. Well, until I'm told I can't have a disc anymore, I'm not going to change. I'll never forget. So I leave early. My wife's friend was helping us to get one for me. She wouldn't tell me. I didn't know she was doing that. So I said, well, when I go to the dentist, there's one more before my appointment at 3:30. I'm leaving, at 2:50 from work to get to the parking lot, so I could maybe get lucky with Walmart.com. And at this time, the bots were hitting everything hard for all the scalpers to sell it for more money. And I get it. Hey, it's a side of business, but damn, let us people who work hard to get one.
Yeah, right. You just want one for yourself just to play. You know what I mean? You're not trying to flip it or anything.
No. And don't get me wrong, there was not that many games out when it first came out either. There was only like
No.
maybe 6.
Right.
And I wanted 2 of them. One was Need for Speed and the other one was Madden, of course. So of course, I'm on my phone at the dentist office going, buy, missed it. Boom. Order placed. Boom. Confirmed. Boom. Sold. Boom. Bullshit. So I'm looking at my phone. I'm like,
Oh, you mean sold to me? No.
no
Yeah.
way. So I go, holy, I'm looking at my phone, like, I got one. I go, no, I was so excited. So I go to the dentist, and my wife is a school teacher, and I'm like, okay, gotta tell her the good news. Hey, I got one. So did my friend Dave. But what the good thing is, he didn't lose any money because his friend was looking for one. So he was able to sell that to him.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm sure he didn't get stuck with that. No.
no. But he was doing a favor for us, and I said, if he gets it, we'll get him whatever he wants. Like,
Right.
besides paying him the money, we'll dinner for him and her. They're good friends of my wife's, and they're good friends of mine too. So it's like whatever he wants, he's gonna get.
Right.
So it's one of those things. So, I don't regret getting the PlayStation 5. I've gone through so many video games on PS5 now, it's ridiculous, because some of them are very easy to play and some of them are not as challenging as they used to be. But now, as the system has progressed 2 or 3 years later, the games are getting harder. So
Right.
one of my go-to games has been Madden. Madden's been very disappointing the last couple of years.
Okay.
It's not the same. It's not fun.
Right.
It gets a little boring. I still play it because I love the game of football.
Well,
That's
now if you're a big Madden guy, I'll ask this question because
Mhm.
honestly, like I said, I've had the Nintendo stuff over the years. I never got into the PlayStation stuff. I did have a PS1, but actually I even got rid of that not too long
Right.
ago. But just out of curiosity, so how different are the Madden games as just somebody who's played them? You know what I mean? From year to year to year, is it really something where like you would need to get one each year?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, from being that I am a huge football fan,
Okay.
yes. Because even the smallest difference in a character makes a huge difference. So when you're talking about Madden 98 to 2023, it's ridiculous. Of course, the graphics are totally different. Everything about the game is so great. And one thing that I always loved, it was making your player. And this is what I loved about NCAA football, because then you can marry your NCAA quarterback. Like, I was always play the quarterback because I couldn't play quarterback growing up. I was a lineman. So, for me, I always like to take control. So what was great is I would bring my quarterback up through my name, of course, and bring it to Notre Dame University of Notre Dame, because I'm a big Notre Dame guy. I would actually marry him into the draft, into the Madden system, and I would get drafted and do my rookie year and all that stuff and contracts.
Oh, So
So
it gets that like deep into it. It's not
it
just
did.
like you start off and you're playing,
No,
as
not
like, you're in the NFL.
in the early days you couldn't do that.
Right.
But as the systems have gotten more superior, they thought of different ways.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so it started off with the PlayStation 3. Now EA decides to cut all NCAA because the kids are
Oh,
demanding money.
okay.
Okay, so there's no NCAA March Madness anymore. There's no NCAA football. There's no NCAA baseball or softball. I'm like, the hell are we gonna do? So I always look when August came around, it was college football. End of July, it was always college football. Triple sessions would be happening. Madden would be coming out end of August. So for the few months of playing football, on top of going to school, on top of getting my homework done, and about 9:30 at night, I'm playing NCAA or Madden. And the one thing I missed was the college football games. And I keep hearing now as the PlayStation 5 is coming, is out already. I keep hearing about a 6, which I don't know if I would ever do 6. But
Yes, you will.
you probably will, but I gotta have to. That one I might have to wait for a while. I might want to wait on that one for a long time. If it's backwards compatible like it was for the PlayStation 5 to the 4, then I heavily would consider it.
Yeah, that's huge.
That is huge. I mean, I brought my GTA 5. Anybody who knows me and heard me say in Playlist Wars, Grand Theft Auto, one of my favorite games to play. It was recently during Playlist Wars as Brian goes, "Hey, we're gonna do a Grand Theft Auto show for you because you've been dying for one." I said, "Great." And I had that itch to play the game again. So I go on Target.com and they have a PlayStation 4 version. So because I still had the PlayStation 4 at that time. Yeah, I still had my PlayStation 4 because I was right where PlayStation 5 came out, and I bought it for like $19.99. So
Wow.
I got it, I hooked it up, and I didn't know when I got the PlayStation 5 that my stuff would actually transfer to the PlayStation 5, which was great. Made life easier for me.
It's huge.
So I stopped playing it, and then when Brian mentioned that we're doing it, I haven't touched it since. It was sitting on my pile. I'm like, oh man, I've not beaten that game. And then I started playing it. Then I started playing it even more. Then I'm like, it's a month prior to the show happening, and I just started playing even more. And then I beat the game.
Okay.
I beat it. And I get a thank you letter from PlayStation saying, congratulations, Gomez, you are in the top 26 percentile to only beat this game.
Get out of here.
No joke.
Wow, that's cool, man.
I go, can I get a plaque or something? Because I rather, but it was the coolest thing ever because, I didn't know that everyone does the online.
Right.
I don't do the online as much. I didn't like the
Right.
online. I did it for like a couple times after I beat the game to see what it was about. What caught my interest to do it was I saw people changing Michael to becoming a cop and him becoming a cop, like legitly a cop and pulling people over and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the only reason. But now, finally, the gods of Rockstar, yes, Rockstar, I still love you guys. You still haven't sent me anything, but we still love you. GTA 6 is happening.
Okay.
Now, GTA 6 is something I'm so waiting for. I don't care if it's $150. I'm buying that freaking video game
Yeah.
because I'm going to get the deluxe package on this one because it's one of my favorite all-time games. They have not just the guys like characters like, I don't know if Michael and these guys are coming back or Trevor or, but I know now there's another side they're bringing, the Spanish world.
Oh, sure.
So
Okay.
there is a female Spanish boss in this. And I heard him like, no way. Like you see the motorcycles are more detailed. The video
Oh,
game is out of this, blown out of the way. The guns are even better. Now, the question is, are they going to make the cheat codes harder to get? Because, the codes are always a thing. Everybody wants the guns and the money.
sure.
You know what I mean? And that's what now I'm wondering if they're going to make you earn that now. You know what I mean? I love the fact that GTA 5, I was able to get a plane like this, or a supercar like that when you type in the phone number. I wonder if they're going to do this with GTA 6, or they're going to make it a little bit harder, maybe.
Well, and also like, is there going to be some kind of like, microtransaction kind of thing like they have on the mobile games? Like, oh, okay, just pay, or like Fortnite, yeah,
Yeah.
the game is free, but you
I
want
don't,
the costume and you want the this and that. Now you're going to pay some actual money,
yeah, that's what
you
I said.
know.
If they do that and they're doing the deluxe package, like you get everything, then I'm definitely doing it. Even if it costs, my wife might not like it. She's probably hearing upstairs saying $200 for a video game. What are you, crazy? I've bought a couple games at $99 because it's the deluxe. Some of
Yeah.
these you just have to get because, as baseball's coming out, the deluxe. Because Derek Jeter's on the cover
Yeah.
on that one. Derek Jeter is one of my favorite Yankees. On top of it, I stopped watching baseball after he retired. I don't watch it as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And it's sad because baseball is such a great pastime sport, but when then the steroids happened and everything's happened, there's no point in watching baseball. After Jeter retired, I just felt like, you know, I couldn't watch it. Don't get me wrong, I watched Aaron Judge go for the Roger Maris record, and I was proud to be a Yankee fan, but I don't watch it as religiously like I used to.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like who's your team and stuff like that. Like, my wife and I are pretty big Phillies fans, and it was so great to see them like have a good season,
Mhm.
this year, and actually, and wind up making it into the World Series, which, that was kind of a long shot, and they were just a scrappy team that just kept at it,
Yeah.
So we haven't really watched baseball, since our kids were born, you know what I mean? Since kind of like we met, that's when the last time the Phillies were good. And we just got back into it this year. And it's like, yeah, it was good to watch baseball again, but we
Yeah.
didn't really have much reason to,
I mean, for me, I haven't went to a hockey arena since '94. Um, that was the last time I went to a Ranger game, Stanley Cup Game 7.
Okay.
So see the Stanley Cup being hoist with my dad was like a dream come true. I mean, we've gone to sports games, me and him. When my dad passed, it really was a different time and a
Yeah.
little lost. And I didn't go to games as much. I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked. And then I met my now wife and things changed. And within the 1 year, she bought me a Mike Richter autographed picture, which means a lot to me because that's from the '94 year.
Cool.
And she bought my new jersey, Henrik Lundqvist, which is one of my favorite all-time goaltenders. And until now, we have Igor Sheturkin, but Henrik at that point was the man. And my wife was a Devils fan,
Oh,
and,
wow.
but slowly as she was watching the games with me, she slowly started liking like Mats Zuccarello. That's one of her favorite players, The Hobbit. And she would watch the games with me, and the one Christmas she bought me the jersey, and I was gonna rip the tag. She goes, "Read the tag, though." I'm like, what? It says came from Canada, Because it's like, dum dum. Inside, there's a note. I'm like, wear this to your first Ranger game, and we went to a Ranger game together, and
It's cool,
the
man.
the emotional tie to it was so
Yeah.
great to share this experience with now my wife. At that point, she was literally my fiance. Now she's my wife, and sharing that moment, that first game that I haven't been to in so long, and it meant so much to me, and it was so emotional, but it was like the greatest day of my life next to my wedding day with her. And that was so cool. And now when we can get to games, we go to games together whenever we can. We went to a
Yeah,
couple
it's
football
cool.
games together. Now that my daughter's getting a little older, I go, I go, listen, if you want to sit through a game, you're gonna have to sit through this long. So we're trying to teach her at home a little bit before I make now a investment, I have to call it, because the way
Yep.
these tickets are going, they're investments.
Yep.
It's like the video games, they're investments.
Yep. Yep.
So, I know it's off topic of what we were talking about, but you could see like how much joy things like this brings to guys like you and me.
Yeah,
You know what
man.
I mean? Video games was a way of passion to escape from life. As a person who suffers from anxiety, it's a good way to get away and kind of, I guess, geek out's the best way. You put your headphones on. If you're a Call of Duty guy, awesome. If you are like me, you don't care about talking to people and you just want to zone out and do your WWE, or I have Need for Speed Underground, or NHL 23, or the Hogwarts Legacies. Yes, I am a Harry Potter fan too.
That's
Um,
cool.
so things like that. You can escape for a few hours, or do a podcast and enjoy it with a friend, like we are
Yeah.
tonight. You know what I mean? So
Well, I want to just bring up, you know, kind of the differences between stuff between now and then.
yes,
You know what I mean? Because I think everything you just said was beautiful. I just feel like, there's a lot of kids these days. I'm gonna sound like the cranky old man on this one.
you're
You know what I
not.
mean? It's fine. It's fine. But it's like games were not necessarily meant to be, a walk in the park. You know what
No,
I
they were
mean?
they were definitely not.
And I get a little offended when I hear, you know, hey, that's NES hard. Or like, oh, you're into those old, NES games. Those are way too hard. I go back to what I was saying earlier. That's what you had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what you had. As time went on and technology moved on, and with digital download and everything, there's so many different things that you can just pick up and play. Oh, I don't even have to take the game out of the system anymore. I just go back to my menu screen,
Yep.
I'm playing another game. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I do.
Not back, not back in the day, man. You
No, you know
know?
what? It's funny. It's now that you have the Facebook. Well, you had MySpace, then you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have all these cool things now. You know what I mean? That you integrate with the video games.
Yep.
And one portable video game we didn't touch on, and before we definitely end anything. You said the Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
I actually have a Nintendo Switch, and I have the Cowabunga package. I have Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. I got Call of Suarez that I downloaded, the cowboy game. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, like those are retro games, and I have what's kind of funny, the Atari 50-year package.
Oh, okay, cool,
You know
man.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I got some cool old school games. And then I look at it and I'm like, wow, how the gaming world has changed. When you
Yeah.
play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga package, you play the NES version,
Uh-huh.
and you see how the turtles are playing almost. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And then you go to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the video game, the newest one, and you see they're more animated.
Uh-huh.
They're more built. That you see the muscles, you see the nunchucks, you see the katana blades, you see the bow, you see the size, you see all that. You see
Right.
the legit colors on their faces. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So when you look at that's a great example right there. Even football, when you talk about Tecmo Super Bowl to Joe Montana football and Madden 90, 92, and then you talk about PlayStation 1 through 5 and all the Maddens, even Xbox and all them, you know what I mean? You see the huge difference. Like right now, I could put in Madden 23, and I'll tell you, the guy looks like Derrick Henry with the hair sticking out, or Miles Sanders, who's no longer a Philadelphia Eagles, now a Carolina Panther. It's seeing those things is unreal. But then for me, it's nostalgia going, I remember when.
Oh yeah.
And it starts off that conversation. I remember when I had my Nintendo, or my Apple, my God, technology today, my Atari 2600.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't near to what it is today. And you know what? I gotta thank the people of the world who made the video games as good as they did.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Am I looking forward to a couple of video games that are coming out? Oh yeah. And one of them I think got pushed back now to September, and it caught my eye, was RoboCop.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Now it's not the 2014 version of RoboCop; it's the 1986 version RoboCop.
I heard about that. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So for me, it was like first person, you are RoboCop. You're actually playing him. So
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to getting that game.
Oh yeah.
The history of baseball from NES now to PlayStation 5, even Xbox, and then the Nintendo Switch on top of it. The history of baseball has been so dramatic, and the way that they have players now and the stats now and what they were back in the day is unreal. You know what I mean? You got a body, a head, a body, and legs, and a bat. Now you got personalities, goatees,
Yeah.
long hair, gold chains, hamburger meat hanging out,
Yeah.
tattoos, and that's a huge
Back in the
difference.
day, it was like hopefully you could tell which team was which.
Yeah, if you're playing the
Okay.
Yankees, am I the Yankees or am I the Dodgers right now? So it's these little things, you know what I mean? But the nostalgia of the games, the video arcades, the games that we loved, it still plays heart to this day.
Absolutely.
Without that, what do you have? Well, you got newer games actually, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's not just that. Sometimes you want to play the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, and God bless whoever decided to make the mini Nintendo and the mini Super Nintendo. God bless that person, because I have both of those, and I get to play my Mike Tyson. Well, no longer Mike Tyson Punch Out, but I know as Mike Tyson Punch Out. I do get to play my Mario once in a while. I get to play the
Yep.
Super Nintendo, which I never owned, and I get to play Yoshi and Super
Mhm.
Mario World and that. So and Star Fox. So those are some things that I might have regret not gotten rid of, but I get an 8-bit on a HDMI cable show here. It's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah, man.
So for
Absolutely.
me, it's nostalgic, and man, talk about going back memory lane today. I can't thank you enough, Shane. It's a true honor having you on the show tonight. You know what I mean? And you brought back some awesome memories tonight. I'll tell you that much.
Oh man, it's been great, man. Thank you so much for having me. I hope we can do it again sometime.
We are going to do this because you know why? We already discussed about something in the middle of the show about remakes and reboots of TV shows and possibly movies, which could be like a part 1 and a part 2 type of episode for us.
That sounds great. I'd
I
love to.
I would love to get together on that, and I'm hoping to do it before the summer hits. We'll discuss
Sure.
it within the next few weeks and see what we could do. But now it's that time. Shane, why don't you tell everybody where they could find you on, podcast stations or wherever you're at these days now, like me.
Well, we didn't talk about this at all, but
Oh yeah.
our podcast is about the band Ween. So basically, it's just called Weencast.
Mhm.
Um, it helps to be a big Ween head. I'll admit it. But if you're someone who's just kind of getting into them, we have a few different episodes that you still might like. But ultimately, what the show is our history of going to see Ween shows. My best friend Rory and I, who I had mentioned, have
Before.
been seeing Ween shows since the mid '90s, since we were literally teenagers up until today. So we've gone through not all of our history yet. We're still in the process of talking about old shows that we went to from our youth, but we'll talk about ones from back in the '90s to, I just talked about the last one I went to was at the end of the year last year.
Wow.
So it kind of ranges in all of the different eras of the band. And then we have some other fun episodes where we talk about the different Ween albums. We have had some special guests on that are really fun conversations. One of the members of the band was nice enough to come on and
Oh,
and
that's
uh, and
awesome.
do an episode with us. So that was a real thrill and a real honor for us. And some other fans have been on the show throughout the years. We've been doing it now for 5 years.
Wow.
And it's just time flies. Podcasting when we started was, I mean, talk about the differences between then and now with the podcasting. It's been insane. So
Exactly.
Weencast Podcast, find us on everything you find your podcast on. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, like I said, it was a true honor having you tonight. We can't wait to have you back on, Shane. We'll definitely be connecting on this reboots of TV shows and reboots of movies, because people they're saying Hollywood's running out of ideas, and makes me wonder why.
What a joke.
It is, but we'll continue that conversation another time. Guys, I want to thank Shane from Weencast, and don't forget to check him out on Weencast Podcast. Check him out on all the stations, and don't forget to check me out, the sleevygpodcasts.com. Yes, there is an S at that. So sleepygpodcast.com. Check out my blogs on there. Check my link tree out on my bios on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm all over the place. This show will be airing soon. And you know what I got to say at the end of the night? Thanks for everyone, but nothing but love, peace, and happiness. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Gomez.